The dim lighting of Manhattan's most exclusive rooftop bar cast long shadows across the polished mahogany tables where Ryan Carter sat with his wealthy friends. Their conversation, fueled by expensive whiskey and ego, had devolved into a competitive game of dares and bets. Ryan, a 35-year-old executive known for his calculated business decisions, found himself in the spotlight as his friends challenged his rigid dating preferences. "You only date models, Ryan. When was the last time you gave a regular woman a chance?" asked James, his longtime friend and business partner, while swirling his drink. "I have standards," Ryan replied firmly, adjusting his custom-made suit. "There's nothing wrong with knowing what you want." The group of 5 successful businessmen erupted in laughter, their expensive watches glinting under the bar lights. That's when Thomas, the most daring of the group, proposed the bet that would change everything. $1 million says you won't marry the next woman who walks through that door, Thomas declared, pulling out his checkbook. No questions asked, no backing out. 1 year of marriage. The other men joined in, raising the stakes to $5 million. Ryan, never one to back down from a challenge and slightly impaired by alcohol, accepted. His pride wouldn't let him walk away, especially with his reputation for always winning at stake. The bar's door swung open at exactly 9:47 p.m. Mia Johnson walked in, her curvy figure wrapped in a vibrant blue dress that matched her confident stride. Her brunette hair fell in natural waves, and her face lit up with genuine warmth as she greeted the bartender by name. She wasn't Ryan's usual type, she was plus-size, dressed in off-the-rack clothing, and carried a portfolio case covered in paint splatters. Ryan's friends erupted in poorly concealed laughter. "Well, go on then, lover boy," James teased, pushing Ryan toward Mia. With his jaw clenched, Ryan approached Mia. She was sketching on a napkin, completely absorbed in her work. When he cleared his throat, she looked up with curious brown eyes that showed no recognition of his status or wealth. "Hi, I'm Ryan Carter," he started, feeling unusually uncertain. "This might sound crazy, but would you be interested in marrying me?" Mia's eyebrows shot up, and a bemused smile played on her lips. "Is this some kind of joke?" she asked, looking around for hidden cameras. "Actually, it's a bet. $5 million if we stay married for a year," Ryan admitted, expecting her to throw her drink in his face. Instead, Mia laughed, a genuine, throaty sound that drew attention from nearby tables. "Well, Mr. Carter, this is either the worst pickup line ever or the most interesting proposition I've had all year." She studied him for a moment, then extended her hand. "I'm Mia Johnson, and I accept your bizarre proposal." From their corner, Ryan's friends watched in disbelief as Mia shook his hand, sealing the deal with surprising casualness. They hadn't expected her to agree, and their amusement quickly turned to shock as they realized the bet was actually happening. The city clerk's office buzzed with fluorescent lighting and bureaucratic efficiency as Ryan and Mia stood before the justice of the peace 3 days later. Ryan's friends, still processing the reality of their bet, served as witnesses, their designer suits out of place among the vinyl chairs and dated wallpaper. Mia wore a simple white sundress she'd picked up from a department store, while Ryan kept checking his Rolex, treating the ceremony like another business transaction. "Do you, Ryan Carter, take Mia Johnson to be your lawfully wedded wife?" the clerk asked, her voice carrying the monotony of someone who'd performed this ceremony countless times. "I do," Ryan replied mechanically, his hands stiff at his sides. His friends snickered in the background, phones ready to document this moment for their social media accounts. When Mia said, "I do," her voice carried a hint of amusement, as if she was participating in an elaborate performance art piece. She signed the marriage certificate with a flourish, her artist's hand adding an unnecessary swirl to her signature. "Well, that's that," the clerk announced, stamping their certificate. "You're officially married." The following week proved awkward as they attempted to navigate their unusual arrangement. Ryan insisted on keeping separate residences, treating their marriage like a business contract. He arranged to meet Mia at an upscale cafe in Manhattan's Upper East Side, choosing a time when he knew his usual crowd wouldn't be around. Mia arrived 15 minutes late, paint stains on her jeans and charcoal smudges on her fingers. She contrasted sharply with the cafe's pristine interior and its wealthy clientele, who cast disapproving glances her way. "Sorry I'm late," she said, dropping her oversized bag beside the table. "I lost track of time working on a new piece." Ryan nodded stiffly, having already ordered her a plain coffee. "We should discuss ground rules for this arrangement." ground rules. Mia raised an eyebrow, stirring sugar into her coffee. You make it sound like a corporate merger. Isn't that essentially what this is? Ryan replied, pulling out a folder. I've had my lawyers draw up some parameters. Hold on, Mia interrupted, pushing the folder aside. Before we dive into contracts, let me show you something. She pulled out her tablet, opening her digital portfolio. This is what I do. This is who I am. For the next hour, Mia walked Ryan through her artwork, abstract pieces that captured raw emotion, portraits that seemed to peer into the subject's soul, and installations that challenged societal norms. Despite himself, Ryan found himself drawn into her explanations, particularly when she described a series inspired by corporate culture's impact on human connection. This piece here, she pointed to a dark canvas with streaks of gold breaking through, represents the moment when someone realizes they've lost themselves in the pursuit of success. See how the light breaks through? That's hope. Ryan stared at the image, recognizing something of himself in the darkness and feeling unexpectedly uncomfortable. For the first time, he looked at Mia, really looked at her, and saw beyond her size to the passion and intelligence that animated her features. You're actually talented, he said, surprise evident in his voice. Mia's smile turned slightly sardonic. Try not to sound so shocked. Not all worth is measured in dollar signs, Mr. Carter. As they continued talking, Ryan's phone buzzed repeatedly with messages from his friends asking for updates on his charity case wife. He ignored them, finding himself genuinely interested in Mia's perspectives on art, life, and success, even if they challenged everything he thought he knew. Ryan's decision to bring Mia to the annual Carter Industries charity gala created immediate ripples through his social circle. The event, held at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, typically served as a showcase of wealth, status, and societal expectations. As they entered, Mia wore a custom-made dress in emerald green, the only concession Ryan had insisted upon for the evening. Victoria Hamilton, Ryan's ex-girlfriend and daughter of his company's biggest investor, approached them first. Her razor-sharp smile matched her size 0 designer dress. Ryan, darling, she air-kissed his cheeks before turning a critical eye to Mia. And this must be your new wife we've heard so much about. Mia Carter, Mia introduced herself, extending her hand with deliberate confidence. Victoria barely touched it before wiping her fingers on a napkin when she thought no one was looking. Throughout the evening, Ryan's social circle executed a masterclass in passive-aggressive behavior. Comments like, "How brave of you to wear such a bright color," and, "It's so refreshing to see someone so comfortable with themselves," peppered every conversation. Each remark was delivered with practiced smiles that never reached their eyes. During dinner, seated at the main table with Ryan's closest associates, Margaret Sterling, his mother's best friend, leaned across the table. "Tell me, dear, what size store do you shop at? I have a cousin who runs a lovely boutique for women of your particular needs." Ryan, engaged in a business discussion, missed the comment entirely. But he couldn't miss what happened next. "Actually," Mia replied, her voice carrying clearly across the table, "I prefer to shop at stores that don't think women need a special section to hide in. But thank you for your concern about my particular needs." The table fell silent. Ryan turned, finally registering the tension. He saw the flush on Margaret's face, the barely concealed smirks from others, and the quiet dignity in Mia's posture. "Mia," he began, uncertain whether to smooth things over or support her stance. "Don't," she cut him off, standing up. "I need some air." He found her in the museum's Greek and Roman sculpture gallery, standing before a statue of Aphrodite. "You're missing the auction," he said, approaching cautiously. "Those women," Mia spoke without turning, "they've never had to question their right to exist in a space, have they?" Her voice trembled slightly. "Do you know what it's like to walk into a room and immediately be judged as less than? To have your entire worth reduced to the size of your dress?" Ryan remained silent, watching as she traced the curves of the ancient statue with her eyes. "These sculptures," she continued, "they celebrated women of all sizes. Beauty wasn't standardized. It wasn't about fitting into some predetermined mold." She finally turned to face him, tears glistening in her eyes but refusing to fall. "I've spent years building my confidence, Ryan. Years learning to love myself despite every magazine, every commercial, every snide comment telling me I shouldn't. And your friends, they look at me like I'm some sort of circus act you brought to entertain them. For the first time, Ryan felt genuine shame about his own past behaviors and prejudices. He'd been one of those people, judging worth by appearance, reducing complex human beings to simple physical attributes. "I apologize," he said quietly. "Not just for tonight, but for being part of the problem." Mia looked at him with surprise, then gave a small nod. "That's a start," she acknowledged. "But Ryan, if we're going to survive this year, you need to decide if you're standing with them or with me. Because I won't spend it apologizing for existing." The following weekend, instead of his usual golf game at the country club, Ryan found himself in a converted warehouse in Brooklyn's Dumbo district. The space hummed with energy as artists and art enthusiasts mingled freely, their conversations spanning from political activism to experimental techniques. Mia moved through the crowd with natural ease, introducing Ryan to a world where bank accounts and social status held no currency. "This is Marcus," she said, presenting a man with paint-stained overalls and dreadlocks. "He creates installations about wealth inequality using discarded Wall Street newspapers." Ryan shifted uncomfortably as Marcus launched into an explanation of his latest piece, a massive bowl made entirely of shredded financial reports and stock certificates. The irony wasn't lost on him. "And over here," Mia continued, leading him to a different installation, "Sarah uses technology to capture emotions in motion." They stood before a wall of digital screens showing people's expressions morphing in real time, each emotion bleeding into the next. As they moved through the gallery, Ryan noticed something changing within himself. The pretense he usually maintained, the carefully crafted image of the successful executive, felt increasingly hollow among these people who valued authenticity above all else. During a performance piece involving spoken word and interpretive dance, Mia leaned close to whisper explanations about the symbolism and meaning behind each movement. Her enthusiasm was contagious, and Ryan found himself genuinely interested in understanding this new perspective on art and expression. Later that evening, they ended up on the rooftop of the gallery building. The Manhattan skyline glittered across the river, and string lights created a warm atmosphere around them. Other artists had joined them, sharing wine from paper cups and engaging in passionate discussions about creativity and purpose. "Tell me something real," Mia said suddenly, turning to Ryan. "Not about your business or your assets. Something about you." Ryan stared into his cup, feeling unexpectedly vulnerable. "I haven't painted since I was 12, he admitted. "My father caught me drawing during a business dinner and told me it wasn't appropriate for a Carterman to waste time on frivolous pursuits." "And what did 12-year-old Ryan like to paint?" "Boats," he replied, smiling at the memory. "I was obsessed with sailboats. Used to dream about leaving everything behind and just sailing away." Mia studied him thoughtfully. "You still could, you know. Leave it all behind. It's not that simple." "Why not?" The question hung between them, heavy with implications. Around them, the artists continued their discussions, their laughter and debates creating a soundtrack to this moment of unexpected intimacy. "My whole life is structured around becoming the person my father wanted me to be," Ryan finally said. "The right schools, the right clubs, the right investments. Sometimes I look in the mirror and don't recognize myself anymore." Mia reached out and touched his hand, her fingers warm against his. "That's the thing about art, Ryan. It's never too late to start over, to create something new. Every blank canvas is a second chance." The moment was interrupted by one of Mia's friends calling them over to see a new piece, but something had shifted between them. Ryan felt lighter, as if sharing that small truth had loosened a knot he hadn't known existed. As they rejoined the group, Ryan watched Mia interact with her artistic community. Her laugh was genuine, her conversations meaningful, and her passion for creativity infectious. For the first time, he began to question whether his carefully constructed world of wealth and status was actually the poorer one. Eleanor Carter's arrival at Ryan's penthouse office was announced by the sharp clicks of her Louboutin heels against marble flooring. His mother, a woman who had perfected the art of using sophistication as a weapon, carried a thick folder of eligible socialites under her arm. "This has gone on long enough, Ryan," she declared, dropping the folder on his desk. "The board is concerned about your unusual marriage situation. Charlotte Wellington is recently divorced, and the Wellington family owns 3 major shipping companies." Ryan continued reviewing contracts, not looking up. "I'm married, Mother." To a circus act, Eleanor snapped, her perfectly manicured hands gripping the chair in front of his desk. Do you have any idea what this is doing to our family's reputation? The Carmichael Jones wedding is next month, and I had to explain to everyone why my son's plus-size artist wife would be attending. Her name is Mia, Ryan said, his voice carrying an edge that made his mother pause. Darling, be reasonable. Whatever this bet was, you've made your point. Give the girl a nice settlement, and let's end this farce. The pressure didn't end with his mother. Board members began questioning his judgment in subtle ways. Business partners made comments about stable family images during meetings. His father, through carefully worded emails, reminded him of his responsibilities to the Carter legacy. That evening, Ryan arrived home to find Mia in his kitchen, attempting to cook dinner, something she'd started doing recently. The sight of her, flour on her cheek and humming while stirring something that smelled surprisingly good, created a confusing mix of emotions in his chest. Your mother called me today, Mia said without turning around. She offered me $2 million to disappear from your life. Ryan froze. She what? Don't worry, I recorded the conversation, Mia continued, her voice deliberately light. Force of habit when dealing with people who might try to destroy my reputation later. She was quite creative with her threats. Mia, I'm so sorry. Stop, she cut him off, finally turning to face him. I don't need your apology, Ryan. What I need is to know if this is worth it. For either of us. The silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken words and growing complications. You're caught between two worlds now, Mia continued, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel. Your mother, the board, your social obligations, they're all pulling you one way. And then there's, whatever this is between us, pulling you another. Ryan stepped forward, but Mia held up a hand to stop him. I see how hard this is for you, she said softly. Every time we're in public, you're torn between defending me and maintaining your image. Every board meeting, every social event, every family dinner, it's wearing you down. I can handle it, Ryan insisted. But should you have to? Mia asked, gathering her things. Maybe your mother's right. Maybe this has gone on long enough. You have a life that was working perfectly fine before I came along with my paint-stained clothes and controversial art shows. Mia, wait. I'm going to stay at my studio for a while, she announced, heading for the door. Take some time to really think about what you want, Ryan. Not what your parents want, not what the board wants, not what society expects. What you want. The door closed behind her with a quiet click, leaving Ryan alone in his pristine penthouse that suddenly felt emptier than ever before. For 3 weeks, Ryan's calls went unanswered, his texts unread. His life returned to its familiar rhythm of board meetings and business dinners, but everything felt hollow. He found himself staring at empty canvases in art supply store windows and stopping to watch street artists in the park, something he'd never noticed before Mia. Finally tracking her down at her studio in a repurposed factory building, Ryan found himself standing before a locked door, hearing movement inside but receiving no answer to his knocks. Mia, please, he called out. We need to talk. The door opened, but it wasn't Mia, it was Marcus, the installation artist, paint streaking his arms. She's not talking to anyone right now, man. She's in her zone. Through the gap in the door, Ryan caught glimpses of massive canvases lining the walls. Each one seemed to pulse with raw emotion, dark swirls of color punctuated by bursts of light, figures trapped between worlds, faces emerging from chaos. These are all new, Marcus explained, following Ryan's gaze. She's been working non-stop for weeks. Got a solo show coming up at the Bowery Gallery. Since when? Since your mother tried to buy her off, Marcus replied bluntly. Something about turning pain into power, she said. Look, man, whatever game you're playing with her heart, it needs to stop. It's not a game, Ryan protested, but the words sounded weak even to him. A week later, Ryan stood in the Bowery Gallery, surrounded by Mia's new collection. The show had drawn an impressive crowd, art critics, collectors, and even some of the city's elite who'd heard rumors about the controversial new artist who'd married into the Carter family. The centerpiece of the exhibition was a massive triptych. The first panel showed a woman trapped in a golden cage, the second depicted her breaking free, and the third showed her soaring while suited figures reached up from below, trying to drag her back down. It's quite remarkable, a voice said beside him. Ryan turned to find Victoria Hamilton, his ex-girlfriend, studying the painting. The way she's captured the suffocation of societal expectations. The price tag is astronomical, but I simply must have it for my collection. It's not for sale, Mia's voice cut through the crowd. She stood there in a black dress that hugged her curves unapologetically, her hair wild and streaked with paint. None of these are for sale to anyone who's ever tried to make me feel small. The gallery fell silent. Victoria's face flushed red as she realized half the room was watching. You can't be serious, Victoria sputtered. I'm offering well above market value. My art isn't about market value, Mia replied calmly. It's about truth. And the truth is, these paintings are about surviving people like you, people who think everything and everyone has a price tag. Ryan watched as Mia moved through the crowd, explaining her work to genuine art lovers while pointedly ignoring the social elite who'd come to gawk. Her confidence was magnetic, her passion undeniable. Each painting told a story of transformation, of breaking free from social constraints, of finding beauty in authenticity. Standing before a self-portrait that showed Mia emerging from shadows into light, Ryan finally understood what he'd been too blind to see before. This woman, whom his social circle had dismissed as beneath them, had more strength and integrity than anyone he'd ever known. The New York Museum of Modern Art's annual fundraiser provided the perfect backdrop for Ryan's planned declaration. He'd spent weeks preparing, finally ready to tell Mia, and the world, how he really felt. The event brought together the city's art patrons and social elite, and Mia had been invited to speak about emerging artists in the contemporary scene. Ryan watched from the audience as Mia took the podium, commanding attention in a dress that celebrated her curves. Just as she began her speech about art's power to challenge societal norms, Eleanor Carter's voice cut through the room like a knife. This is absolutely ridiculous, Eleanor announced, standing up from her front row seat. My son may have temporarily lost his mind, but I won't stand by and watch this woman make a mockery of our family's reputation. She turned to address the crowd directly. This marriage is nothing but a bet gone wrong. She's using my son to gain access to our world, to promote her mediocre art. The room erupted in whispers. Photographers' cameras started flashing. Mia stood frozen at the podium, her speech forgotten. Mother, that's enough, Ryan's voice boomed across the room as he strode toward the stage. No, it's not nearly enough, Eleanor continued, her voice shaking with anger. The board meeting is next week, Ryan. Your father and I have already spoken with the major shareholders. Either this ends now, or your position as CEO does. Ryan reached the stage, standing beside Mia. For the first time in his life, he looked at his mother not with respect or fear, but with pity. You know what, Mother? Fire me. The gasps from the crowd were audible. I've spent my entire life trying to live up to your and father's expectations. I've dated the right women, joined the right clubs, made the right business decisions. And I've never been more miserable. Eleanor's face paled. You're throwing away everything we've built. No, Ryan interrupted, taking Mia's hand. I'm finally building something real. Something that matters. He turned to face the crowd. Yes, this marriage started as a bet. But it became the best thing that ever happened to me. Mia showed me that true worth isn't measured in stock prices or social status. It's measured in authenticity, in courage, in the ability to stand up for what you believe in. Mia squeezed his hand, tears streaming down her face, but her voice was strong when she addressed Eleanor. You've tried to buy me off, threaten me, and shame me. But here's what you never understood, I don't want your money or your social position. I fell in love with your son because he finally learned to see beyond all that superficial nonsense you hold so dear. The crowd had grown silent, watching the drama unfold. Eleanor stood rigid, her perfect facade cracking. If you go through with this, she warned Ryan, you'll lose everything. No, Mother, Ryan replied calmly. I'm finally gaining everything that matters. He turned to the crowd. My wife is talented, kind, and stronger than anyone I know. She's taught me that real success isn't about power or prestige, it's about being true to yourself and standing up for what you believe in. If that costs me my position as CEO, so be it. The silence was broken by slow clapping from the back of the room. Marcus stood up, followed by other artists and gallery owners who knew Mia's work. Soon, half the room was applauding, while the other half, the old money crowd, sat in stunned silence. 2 months later, Ryan transformed the top floor of Carter Industries headquarters into a temporary gallery space. He'd spent weeks working with Marcus and other artists from Mia's community to create an unprecedented event, one that would merge the corporate and artistic worlds in a way never before attempted. The space, usually reserved for board meetings and executive functions, now housed Mia's most powerful works alongside pieces from other artists who'd been historically marginalized by the traditional art world. The centerpiece was a new installation Mia had created specifically for this night, a massive multimedia piece that incorporated video projections, sculpture, and interactive elements. Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan addressed the gathered crowd of board members, art critics, and social elites. Tonight isn't just about art. It's about challenging our preconceptions of beauty, success, and worth. My wife, Mia Carter, will guide us through an experience that I guarantee will change how you see the world. Mia stepped forward, no longer the outsider trying to fit in, but a confident artist in her element. She wore a dress of her own design, covered in hand-painted symbols that seemed to move in the gallery lighting. This installation is called Breaking the Glass Box, she began. Each of you will receive a small hammer. Around the room, you'll find glass boxes containing various objects, designer labels, credit cards, social club memberships, and other symbols of status. But you'll also find mirrors showing your own reflection. The audience members exchanged uncertain glances as they received their hammers. The choice is yours, Mia continued. Break the boxes containing the symbols of artificial worth, or break the mirror showing your true self. Each choice will trigger different visual and audio responses in the installation. What followed was remarkable. One by one, people approached the boxes. Many started with hesitation, but as the evening progressed, more and more chose to break the boxes containing status symbols. With each shatter, the room's projections shifted, creating a dynamic visual representation of liberation from societal constraints. Eleanor Carter stood before one of the last boxes, hammer trembling in her hand. Inside was a photo of herself from decades ago, before she'd fully embraced the role of society matriarch. She stared at it for a long moment before suddenly swinging the hammer, breaking not the box, but the mirror beside it. The room fell silent. Mia approached her mother-in-law gently. "Would you like to share why you made that choice?" Eleanor's voice wavered. "Because I'm not ready to let go. Because I don't know who I am without all of this." She gestured to the symbols of wealth and status around her. "That's the most honest thing you've ever said," Mia replied softly. "And it's the beginning of real art, truth." The moment was captured by dozens of phones and cameras. By morning, social media was buzzing with videos of prominent socialites and business leaders participating in Mia's installation. Art critics hailed it as a breakthrough in interactive social commentary. But more importantly, it sparked conversations about authenticity, worth, and the prices people pay for maintaining social facades. As the event wound down, Ryan found Mia standing before the wall of broken boxes and shattered mirrors. "You've changed them," he said, wrapping his arms around her waist. "No," she corrected him. "They're changing themselves. Sometimes people just need permission to be real." In the aftermath of the installation's success, Ryan and Mia found themselves in her studio late one night. Paint supplies littered every surface, and the walls were covered with sketches for her next project. Ryan had loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves, looking more comfortable in this creative chaos than he ever had in his executive office. "I need to tell you something," he said, pulling a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket. "I found this in my desk the other day." He smoothed out what appeared to be a childhood drawing, a simple sailboat on blue waves. "This was the last thing I ever drew before my father made me stop. I've carried it with me through every office, every promotion, every achievement, never quite able to throw it away." Mia took the drawing, studying it carefully. "It's honest," she said simply. "The proportions are wrong, the perspective is off, but there's real joy in these lines." "I love you," Ryan blurted out. "Not because of any bet, not because you've made me look good or bad in front of anyone. I love you because you taught me how to see that joy again. In art, in life, in myself." Before Mia could respond, her phone buzzed with an incoming email. Her face went pale as she read it. "The Guggenheim," she whispered. "They want my entire Breaking the Glass Box series. They're offering. Ryan, this is more money than I've ever seen." Ryan started to congratulate her, but stopped when he saw her expression. "What's wrong? Your mother was at the installation. She's on the museum's board of trustees." Mia's voice was hesitant. What if this is just another attempt to buy me off? To make me go away quietly with a prestigious sale? Read the offer again, Ryan insisted. Really read it. Mia scrolled through the email slowly. The curator's notes praised the technical execution, the social commentary, the innovative use of multimedia. The amount offered was significant but not excessive, market value for groundbreaking work. This is real, Ryan said softly. You earned this. Not because you're my wife, not because of any connections. Because you're talented and you've worked incredibly hard. Eleanor Carter appeared in the studio doorway, her presence both unexpected and transformative. She'd clearly come straight from a board meeting, her designer suit slightly wrinkled from a long day. I nominated your work, she admitted, stepping into the space. Not because you're my daughter-in-law. In fact, I recused myself from the final vote. She touched one of Mia's canvases gently. I nominated you because last night, for the first time in decades, I looked in a mirror and questioned everything I thought I knew about worth. Mia stood frozen, unsure how to react to this sudden vulnerability from a woman who'd been her biggest critic. The board voted unanimously, Eleanor continued. Your work speaks to something we've all felt but never dared to express. The prison of expectations, the weight of maintaining appearances, the courage it takes to break free. The Guggenheim's main hall buzzed with anticipation on opening night. Mia's installation had been expanded, taking over the entire rotunda with a spiral of breaking glass boxes and transformative moments. The guest list included everyone from street artists to Wall Street executives, creating an unprecedented mixing of social circles. Ryan stood proudly beside Mia as she prepared to give her opening speech. But just as she stepped toward the podium, a commotion erupted near the entrance. Sophia Martinez, Ryan's ex-fiancée from 5 years ago, strode in with a manila envelope in her hand. Sorry to crash the party, Sophia announced, her voice carrying across the hall. But I thought everyone should know the truth about Ryan Carter's sudden interest in the art world. She pulled out documents from the envelope. 3 years ago, Ryan orchestrated a hostile takeover of my father's art gallery chain. He knew I was building my career there, and he did it purely out of spite when I ended our engagement. The crowd began to murmur. Photographers turned their cameras toward the drama unfolding. But that's not all, Sophia continued, producing more papers. I have proof that he's been secretly buying up small galleries across the city, including the ones that rejected Mia's work early in her career. This whole rags to riches artist story. It's all been orchestrated. He's been manipulating the art world to manufacture his wife's success. Mia felt the room spinning. She looked at Ryan, searching his face for any sign of truth in these accusations. But before Ryan could defend himself, Marcus stepped forward. Actually, I can shed some light on this. He pulled out his phone and played a recording. In it, Sophia's voice could be clearly heard offering Marcus money to sabotage Mia's early installations. You've been trying to derail Mia's career for months, Marcus announced. We've documented everything, the accidental damage to her pieces, the mysterious cancellations of gallery showings, the negative reviews posted under fake names. Eleanor Carter, now standing firmly beside Mia, addressed Sophia directly. I remember you, Ms. Martinez. You wanted to marry my son for the same reason you're here tonight, publicity and power. But you never understood that real power comes from authenticity, not manipulation. Ryan finally spoke, his voice steady. I did buy some galleries, Sophia. Not to manipulate anyone's career, but to prevent you from destroying more artists' dreams. Every purchase was made through proper channels, every transaction transparent. Unlike your father's practice of exploiting emerging artists. The crowd had grown silent, watching this confrontation unfold. Mia stepped forward, taking the microphone. This installation is about breaking free from lies, she said, her voice strong. About shattering the illusions we hide behind. So thank you, Sophia. You've just become part of the art. She gestured to the ceiling, where projectors had been capturing and displaying the entire scene, incorporating it into the installation's narrative about truth and transformation. The audience burst into applause. Art critics rushed to their phones, already composing pieces about how the dramatic confrontation had added an unplanned but powerful dimension to the exhibition's message. As security quietly escorted Sophia out, Ryan turned to Mia. I should have told you about the galleries. Yes, you should have, she agreed. But you protected other artists from being exploited. That's the man I fell in love with, the one who finally learned to use his power for something meaningful. Eleanor linked arms with both of them. Well, shall we give them something real to talk about? I believe we have an exhibition to launch. Together, they faced the crowd, the wealthy socialite who'd learned to value authenticity over appearance, the corporate executive who'd found his soul through art, and the artist who'd taught them both that true beauty comes in all forms. Their story, which had begun as a bet in a bar, had transformed into something no one could have predicted, a testament to love's power to break through every glass ceiling, shatter every preconception, and create something genuinely beautiful from the pieces.